I'm ready to slash and burn.
No quarter. I am going to be uncomfortable and all over you from start to finish.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Outside of the Box. And I love doing interviews with rookie teams, as well as interviews with, folks who have robots at Norwalk. So today we're kind of getting both, and I'm really excited about that. So I have Joshua Kong from Team Horizon, as well as known at Norwalk for Skyline and, other bots. So welcome to the show.
Hello, it's nice to be on here.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll kind of talk about Horizon first. I know there's not a lot to talk about because there's only been one match thus far, as far as what's been televised and all of that. But something that I wasn't aware of, that I kind of recently just found out, is that you had submitted for season 6 or World Championship 6, kind of the way that it's being framed now, and didn't end up getting in that time. What do you think, what were the big differences, do you think, this year as far as getting into BattleBots? Or do you think it was just a matter of, like recognizing Horizon as a really unique design and something that I think, is exciting for people to see?
So the difference that most people won't see is that it was still an April Fool's joke back then. Yeah, but might take my April Fool's jokes quite seriously. So coming into this year, we had at least three tournaments with Skyline under our belt. We had a pretty decent highlight reel. It's not the most it's not like the number 1 ranked hobby weight or anything, but I think it did quite well in its own right. And talking to Greg after season 6 rejection, one of the main questions is this thing even going to exist? They didn't know that. They liked the concept. They didn't know that it would exist. So, which is the main reason we got rejected. I was talking to Greg this season, and he said, we are always ready to let you on because they thought this design shows a promise.
Yeah, it certainly does. It's not like anything that I've really ever seen, and I was excited to get to see you have a match, not only just having one, but kind of fun that it got to be against Shreddit Bro, which is also, all folks coming from Norwalk. So it's kind of like a Norwalk reunion. Now I'm curious to kind of hear your take, talking through that match, because I'm sure that it didn't go as intended. And it just, I don't think that it was a particularly great match for either team, that really either team wanted to show that. I think you would hope to come with more, but it's a new robot, first time in a match in the box. You never know what's going to happen. So it gives you that opportunity to see what it's doing and what you need to go back in and change for the next one.
Yeah, well, in all honesty, it was a basement fight, right? It definitely was our worst fight. That's it's all up from here basically. But it almost reminded me of season 2 when ABC, or season 1 when ABC still had it, and you can see the clips on YouTube of the untelevised fights where everybody is new to that. It's not like people are just coming in with a new robot, but they have 10 years of experience. So a lot of those weapons stopped in the first hit. You did get a lot of basement fights, and that's what we were seeing here. Like, how many new people just have spectacular first fights? Not that many. That's what happened here. One of the issues we were dealing with was our ESCs. They weren't delivering the power we expected, and there was a very good reason for that I might get into later. But essentially, we were too compounded with that was we were too conservative on the current limits, so we just didn't get good spin up. And the second issue that is most important to the fight was the fact that when you make a chain, right, you've got mostly good complete links, and there's something called a master link. That's a link that you can basically take apart, and it's held together by a little pin. So you make your rest of the chain, and then you stick the master link in, and you stick the pin in and you basically have a chain. What happened was, on paper, that little pin, it doesn't it's not supposed to see any load, but this is BattleBots, and a lot of stupid stuff happens. So this is the first and last time we had a Master Link fall apart on spin up. I don't remember which side of the arm that was, but that was one side of the arm that straight up just didn't have power to the weapon. And if you know a robot, it depends on the spinners to spin the arm up. So with half of the spinners gone, and with the remaining spinner being really anemic, it we just couldn't spin up. We did, this is something we found throughout the season, is that Horizon is one of the more efficient energy delivery robots because of the way it's built. We did see that we completely shattered their vulcanized rubber wheel. I don't know if that has anything to do with the sketchy manufacturing, but I think that was quite a bit of damage that I found interesting. On the hit where they throw us against the wall, we actually outbit them. The beater bar has a notch in the middle. We actually started to cut into that notch, but we were already sort of knee deep in their impactor, and that didn't go very well for us.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, not the best start. And, the schedule that you had, pretty daunting schedule overall. You have Monsoon, who's been away for a couple of seasons, tough to say what they're going to do. But they obviously have a very powerful vertical Shatter, who I'm sure that you're very familiar with, as Adam and all of them are also Norwalk folks. And then Triton, which is very scary, at least to look at. We'll see how it performs the rest of the season, because it's also coming in new. What were kind of your initial thoughts, or was it just kind of a one fight at a time mentality?
I mean, you do have to take these things one fight at a time, because if you try to prepare for 4 fights in a row in the time span of the preparation time of one fight, you're not really going to do well in that first fight in the first place. We thought it was it's definitely a moderately challenging schedule, but we thought it was fair. We didn't think we were getting fed to everybody. But yeah, after the first fight, though, we were starting to see a lot of the issues of the robot. A lot of the time when you look at this schedule, you're like, okay, well, in the best case, the robot performs great. What chance do we have? So that was not shaping up to be the case, obviously. Never is. So after the first fight, like, most people would just take the day off after they fight. But we got right back to work. We got that thing right back into the test box, and our ESC guy, Kai, he played around with his sort of motor detection, and also the current limit. We relaxed that a lot. We I think did a little work in the clutches too, which is completely my fault in terms of design, because it was terrible. But yeah, I want to say we cut the spin up time in half. It still wasn't great, but it was a massive improvement. And I think that was really nice to see everybody working on that after, quite a tiring day.
Yes. It's tough, because you have to balance, like, making sure that you don't push yourself too hard, but at the same time, like, if you need to make changes, then you have to make sure that you get that in as quickly as possible to kind of refine things. So that's definitely interesting to hear. Now I'm curious though, like, from the design perspective, because obviously you've had Skyline, the 12-pounder and all of that. When you initially came up with the robot, and I'm sure that you've talked about this before, but I haven't heard about it. So, and I'm sure that there's other people that haven't, but what was the thought process as far as going into that type of design? Because it definitely is unique, as far as at least robots that I've seen. And but at the same time, I look at it and I'm like, this is so cool. I don't know why people haven't tried this before, because it seems like an obvious way of, like, incorporating motion in a unique sense.
I think the reason a lot of people haven't tried this is it's really hard to build one of these things, actually, at least using traditional techniques. You have to think out of the box if you really want this thing to get to the durability level of something like Tantrum. The weight is spread out over a very large area. you got the arm and the drive base. So a lot of that is really thinly armored. The arm isn't even solid plating, and most of the plating is like the thickness of a middleweight probably. The drive base really does only weigh 60 pounds. In 12 pounds, we have access to like stuff like plastics. Those are nice because they'll rebound after a hit. They won't just bend permanently. In heavyweights, that just really doesn't scale up that well. You'll see like Tombstone cut through like, I think some people, he's gotten through some people's like 1.5 inch thick UHMW plates. We just didn't have the volume for that. So we had to go with what I call the naive solution, which is just an AR weldment. And I think it performed respectably, although you do need sort of a out of the box approach for this kind of thing, which we did talk about with some of the other builders, and we have some ideas. But the interesting story I want to share is how the current drive base got together. You may have seen us at Robotica, and that was a completely different design. Basically, we designed this drive base saying, oh, you have more weight in heavies. And it was quite over armored. It was all like 1/4 inch AR, and it was supposed to have like an armor belt. Spoiler alert, you do not have more weight in heavies. That's true to an extent, but not with this design. So we were trying to, this is coming down to the last couple weeks of design. We were trying to just like take as much weight off this old drive base as possible. And then we realized that, it'd be more efficient to just start over really than to make this new drive base weight limit compliant. So like me, Kyle, Peter, we hammered this thing out about like, I want to say 5 days, right? From like layout to actually ordering parts. And that was crazy, but that was a lot of fun. Just like working in this, CAD is usually quite relaxed, but we were like super scrambling. Like Kyle like pulled an all-nighter the first night, just trying to get the layout done. And yeah, it's just a really different experience, and I liked it.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting though. I'm certainly not an engineer, but I'm a creative person. And so I understand though that when you have this idea in your head, it's really important in a lot of ways to kind of get that out and execute on it so that it can be what you're envisioning it to be. Do you think that, because you put so much time in doing that pretty quickly, that helped you be successful to kind of execute it in a way that you wanted to?
Well, the main goal for year one is really to come with something that works and not necessarily do the experimental high risk stuff. I think that stuff is this is an inherently high risk design. It is very delicate, but I think it also has a lot of potential. Yeah, so we had to do a lot of things that weren't necessarily optimal to just get it past the first time. Like I think the spindle, which is the part that holds the big arm onto the drive base, needs a bit of work. I think it cost us way too much to well, it's free thanks to rapid access, but it would have cost way too much. Stuff like that. We probably could have thought of the armor for the drive base a little better, but at that point we were just trying to get it done. Also, the electronics boxes. We had these TPU boxes and they were great, but the problem with the arm section was that the electronic section was way too compact. You had to take the whole thing apart just to like rewire the switch or something. That is something that I hated doing, and it was very demoralizing for such a small task. So that is something we want to improve. We want to improve all the tolerances on those, make the robot easy and fun to work on, which is what keeps it going in the end.
Yes, definitely. Now, kind of talking more about the smaller robots, because they're really exciting to watch, truly for people who haven't seen it. But what what kind of got you into, doing this in the first place, as far as, making that first robot and kind of competing and things like that?
So I wouldn't consider myself a mechanical engineer before I found out about BattleBots. I think I found out about it. There was some like illegally uploaded highlight reel on YouTube, this compilation, probably demonetized. So I was like, wow, this is really cool. Not just because of the robots. I watched a lot of anime growing up, so I'm like, oh, it kind of sucks that we can't have like mechas or whatever. But it was the spirit, the way it was presented, and like the potential to do whatever you want, really. I really didn't get into it right away. This was about midway through high school, because I just didn't know how to do this stuff. But I did get a 3D printer for Christmas one year, and that was a gateway drug. I learned how to do CAD. I learned how to like tolerance things, insert hardware. And by the time I got back on this BattleBots thing, I was like, I might be able to build a smaller robot. And my smaller robot was kind of a disaster too, because I never printed nylon before. If you've never printed nylon, it soaks up water really quick, and it's very slippery. So most extruders are going to have a hard time gripping, at least in like 2015, where most of these crappy Chinese extruders were designed. So yeah, I had to like print the whole thing out of like my prototyping plastic the whole time, but it's still on. And that's when I thought, this is kind of fun. I might do this again. The newer bots, they've definitely, I'm glad to say that they've come a long way. I know a lot more about structure at this point, and electronic selection, that kind of thing. And I'm more comfortable like taking the individual parts apart rather than treating them a whole unit that just like I don't understand from the inside out.
Yes, you can definitely learn a lot, I think, in a very small period of time with building the smaller robots. And it's with everything that's out there, all of the various kits and tutorials, YouTube videos, whatever the case may be, it seems way more accessible now than it used to be at one point.
Absolutely. I think, if you want to start combat, get in touch with the community. That will make things a lot easier. I didn't know about the Facebook forums. I don't think Discord was as big back when I was starting. But that is a very good resource now. You can talk to like JMO, you can talk to like Aaron. A lot of those people are online and they know a lot about robots. So it's a great way to make friends and to get better at engineering.
Yes, for people that don't know or haven't, joined it, because I know you mentioned Discord, and like the Norwalk one in particular, I find is a really helpful resource for people that are looking to build or looking to improve their skills in building, because, like you mentioned, a lot of the major builders out there are in those forums, and they're more than happy to give advice and feedback to pretty much anyone who asks.
Yeah, standard Discord rules, though, it gets kind of controversial at times. So just keep in mind that this is online and people will say things that they won't necessarily say in real life. You might even do that, but yeah, it's important to give people the benefit of the doubt and not to take it too seriously.
Yes, exactly. Well, as with anything online, it's very easy to cross into that controversial territory. So it certainly happens. But yeah, and is Norwalk, obviously you've done that, but are there other competitions nationally that you have, gone to pretty frequently, or?
I go to a lot of the SoCal events. They're definitely not as high production value as Norwalk, but I think they're just as much fun. Anytime you fight robots, it's a good time. So if you have an event near you, you can go on like robot combat events, find your event, and those are always fun. You can, there's not as much pressure. And I think really form a friendship with the local community because you'll be fighting them a lot.
Yes. You never know who you're going to fight. I always like to use my good friend Tom Farkas as an example that, when I first started chatting with him, he had first drink of the day and he was still relatively new to building. And now he has positively hysterical, which is probably one of my favorite robot builds of all time. Fighting against Jameson Go and getting like 1 million views on YouTube.
Yeah, that's certainly the hope there, is just bring something ridiculous and people accept it. I hope that's what happened here. No, happens here. There's been a lot of vitriol on Facebook. Some of those people don't understand sarcasm either, but it's the robots that bring me back, and keep doing it as long as I find the engineering.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And, I think that with any robot, design or what have you at any level, there's a balance. And I think, for some people, they, only appreciate the robots that win every match. There's different things that people get out of watching combat robotics. And for me, there's a lot, sure, some robots that are very dominant, that's great, but I also appreciate really great design, or robots that are just fun, or there's lots of things that someone can get out of combat robotics, and I think that's what makes it great, and I think that's what makes the community great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I was also going to ask you too, just in general, like I would say with Norwalk specifically, because of the fact that it is a little bit more well known, it's not a TV show, but it is, there's the production end of it. It is, quite popular on YouTube, but kind of talking about how that has grown over time, because it, it's way more viewed and way more like people are aware of it as opposed to what they used to be. And I think a big part of that is just the work that the folks of Norwalk have put in to make it so, and just the level of quality and talent of like the builders who go there, such as yourself. I think all of that is what's really helped it build up to what it is right now.
Yeah. Sadly, I do think maybe there's a critical mass to robot combat events. I think what really holds it together is like the personal level and the acceptance of responsibility. There's been a lot of like controversy over the queuing system and stuff. I think that is mainly involved because there's just a lot of people running the event. Not a lot of those people are necessarily robot builders or even sympathetic to them. So yeah, the production value, everything is great, but is it a good tournament? That remains to be seen. I'm not necessarily on board with the new sort of matchmaking system. I think it can shortchange some people, but maybe that's just the reality of the situation. Although when we went to Norwalk, I think it was a fairly pleasant experience. My robot didn't do quite well. Skyline, which was entirely Kyle's project at that point. I was pretty impressed with that. I think the drunken peasant fight, it was worth going all the way across country just for that. But I think that really the golden age of Norwalk was, I want to say, early 2021, where you could tell they were stepping things up, but you didn't know where it was going to go, and there was still kind of this underground attitude to it. I did actually have a robot enter. I mailed it over to Izzy and Joe from SME, and they drove it for me because they didn't want to pay for an airline ticket. But that was fun. Even just getting destroyed by like voxel was hilarious.
Is that fairly common though, like with the smaller robots of, designing one? And because I've heard a few people that have done that they've designed a robot, but then they just send the robot for someone else to drive. I mean, is that like a normal occurrence?
I think Peter Smith, who runs Kitbots, has been doing that to field like multiple copies of the new Weta kit. It's not really that common. Basically, I just had an idea for beetle weight and I wanted to rush build it, and there were no current events around, so I was just like, hell, why not just mail it?
That's one way to do it. Yeah, because I was just going to ask you too that, like, talking about 2023 and beyond, that is there anything else that you're working on, in terms of other robots or designs or things like that?
Yeah, I can post them off the shelf.
Yeah, please do.
So this one's called Mad Dragon. It's expected to be the next iteration of the Horizon design. Actually, I came up with it slightly before I came up with Horizon, but Frosty existed, so we sort of had to backtrack. But it's a turret. The arm is actually powered this time, and it has natural front end, which means that you could defend a lot better, not just at the mercy of the other person's wedge. And you can also use the turret as an offensive tool to let you flank without really exposing your flank. So this thing's a lot of fun to drive. I haven't gotten to take it out a lot, but it's kind of like the Agamizer, but it's more optimized for like a quick response. It's not the simplest, but I still like it a lot. And this one, there's actually two versions. This one's called Michelle. I also have the other one called Mitch. Right. The idea was it started as a glitch parody, and the idea behind the name Mitch is, the event organizer comes in. He's like, your next opponent is Mitch. You're not going to be very worried. And if you know how Rucker's Crazy Susan, it's a big dish with the spinner on top, right? And the idea is it drives under you and like cuts your wheels off or whatever. I thought that had a lot of potential because you see overheads like Bloodsport, they're almost obligated to go weapon on weapon. And usually they don't have the more durable weapon. So I sit the weapon back, I sit it low to get a nice center of gravity, and I feed them onto the weapon. So if they lose a ground game once, they're going to keep losing. And this thing is very effective against wedges. It will usually get under them and like tear up the edge so that they'll never get under again. So I think this is ground game horizontals are going to be a big game changer. And I'm thinking of building like a 3-pound version of this. I've already done 1-pound plastic. This is the full combat one. And like this one's interesting too, because like Horizon, there's like, 3 of these that ever been built. So nobody really knows what they're doing in terms of like the broad architecture. In vertical spinner design, like, I want to have 4 or 6 rails to that go along the length of the robot. Like that's generally how I want to design a good vert. You don't really know that here. You don't know how many like layers of the sandwich in the structure of the robot you really need, and don't know how thick is really optimal. So it's really exciting for me, and I hope something good comes out of this, because if so, it could give verts a real challenge for the meta.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, I don't know if that is as much of a thing with the smaller robots, but I mean, it certainly is with the heavies, at least at BattleBots, that the ground game is a huge thing right now. And, people are just, I think, kind of trying to outdo each other. And, sometimes it's effective and sometimes it's not. So that is a very interesting kind of spin on a way to deal with that.
Yeah, the ground game, it's getting to everybody. I don't really like it because I don't like the config determining the match before it ever happens. It seems a bit worse than BattleBots because people are working, a full year on a single robot, and they want the ground game to be as good as possible, and they have the time to think about that for a single design. Yeah, so my point of using horizontals is because it's really good against some of these more optimized ground games. I really want to make something that always has a chance. So like Mad Dragon, Mitch, theoretically, if you drive well enough, you can have a chance in a match where you're denied the ground game. So yeah, I hope more people are more on board with the more versatile play style rather than just, oh, I lost the fork game, I'm screwed. Because that's what's going to keep matches interesting if people can't just predict what's going to happen.
Yes, I love that. And honestly, that's one of the things that I have loved about this particular season of BattleBots is, I think more than any other season I can recall, there's matches where they're not going the way that I think people think that they're going to go. So it's exciting when you see something that's not expected. And even with like the naming, like you mentioned about, calling it Mitch, I think that's fantastic.
It's mostly a joke, but maybe it has made some people shortchange the robot.
It might, you see it's, like even design, naming, whatever, anything that you could do to your robot to make it seem like, oh, this isn't super threatening, and then find out that it is. I mean, it's in some ways it can be as much of a head game as it can be with just the actual robot. So I love it.
I wouldn't rely too much on the name, but it's something funny.
It is. I can definitely appreciate it. But yeah, no, that sounds really exciting. I am personally a big fan of innovation and doing different things that, a lot of people haven't done. So I will love to see how that turns out. But yeah, we'll see how the rest of the BattleBot season goes for Horizon, but I'm excited that you got a chance to have it on and to showcase it, and just excited to see kind of what else you do and come up with.
Yeah, it's an opportunity I was immensely grateful for.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, if you're watching the show, obviously keep liking, subscribing, commenting, let me know your thoughts. And we have a lot more to come this season, lots of exciting things. So everybody just keep watching, and I appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here again. Thanks.